All right, God damn it. The wait is over. Finally. You don't have to wait any longer. We're doing another one of these goddamn things. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome once more to Monday night. I'm your intrepid host, Yell Chaos. I know I've been away for quite some time. I know I say that almost every time I come back for one of these programs. That's just the way life goes, I guess. Good evening and welcome to our program. Before we get too far along, I want to remind you to check me out on the social media while I got your attention. Twitter sucks, so I'm not here to plug Twitter. Twitter's nothing but a fucking, ad stream designed to brainwash you the same way Fox News and MSNBC works. So I don't advocate Twitter, but if you're interested in it and you'd like to deal with me, you can find me on Twitter. Handle is Yell Chaos. You can also find me on Facebook as well as Instagram, which I enjoy Instagram because you can just take pictures and let the pictures speak for themselves. I think that's really neat. Also, don't forget to check me out here on YouTube and watch some of the older material and all that. And if you have questions, comments, concerns of any kind, correspondence of any kind, please drop me a line at the yellchaosprogram@gmail.com. All one word, the yellchaosprogram. It's so good to see every one of you. I hope you guys are having a great Monday. So thank you for joining me today. Had to get on here and say hello to everybody because I know I've been away for quite some time. And if you're wondering why I'm looking off camera, it's because I'm fucking with this microphone. We're well overdue for an equipment change around here. And by the way, I have a cough drop in the left side of my mouth. So I don't think I have the mumps or anything. Anyway, so I'm fucking with that right now. But welcome to our program. We, at least I, hope that you're all doing very well. And yeah, I'm just here to update you on what I'm doing, what I plan to be doing, if anything, and letting you know because people are concerned. They thought I was dead, and I always find it interesting when you send email to a dead person. I'm not exactly sure what you're expecting, but I'm not dead, not passed away. Just having a cough drop because my throat is a little sore. It's been rapidly fluctuating temperatures here in California because we are knee deep in hurricane season. We don't get a lot of hurricanes to this part of the country, but we are directly influenced by the weather systems that go on in Mexico. So why do I sound funny? It's just the climate, just the weather. But hello, how are you? Good to see you. I understand that there's a lot of people here who were touching themselves before the program. Now that's okay. That's all right. I understand, because, I got a new profile picture on there. It's a good looking one, isn't it? So, if you got a little excited, that's all right. I understand. I absolutely do. But a lot of the usual suspects are up in here. I'm not going to name names because, then they'll get a big pop for no good reason. But it's good to see each and every one of you. I'll be taking some questions whenever we get to when I run out of things to really talk about, because there's a few things that have been on my mind lately, and I just haven't had a chance to be on here. I'm working a lot lately, and I hate to say that because I know you guys want to believe that I live only to make content for you guys, and I enjoy doing that. I really do. But there's just other things going on in my life, and that's just the way things are. I try to be on here as much as I can, which is clearly not much. I've been away for, I think, 6 months now on this particular channel. I did not realize it had been that long. I'm terribly sorry. I may have fielded this last time. People asked what I'm doing as far as new videos. Nothing. YouTube has become overrun with content. So much so that people who I know personally who watch this program ask me, why they're not seeing programming from me, even when I was doing active programming. And I said, I don't know. I don't know how social media works, really. I don't think the people who run social media know how social media works. I know that the motherfuckers over at Facebook, if you like me on Facebook and you're not hearing anything from me on Facebook, it's because I'm not paying those motherfuckers 1 red cent until they can show me how it would affect me or do anything for me. So if you don't know where I've been, you can always drop me an email if you're that interested at theyellchaosprogram@gmail.com. That goes directly to me. Go scoot past all that bullshit. And for those of you nice people, I've had some very nice people say some very nice things to me on the Facebook Messenger, on the Yell Chaos page on Facebook. Very nice people over there. Some fucking wackaloons over there too, but some very nice people over there. And I really appreciate them saying the nice things that they say. But if you're going to drop me a line through the Facebook Messenger, be advised that I probably won't find out for like months. I found messages that had been in there for some time, and I was never sent any notifications of any kind. And it's kind of a convoluted mess to receive those messages in the first place. So if you do want to send me any correspondence, please do so at email, thechaosprogram@gmail.com. So you can do all that sort of thing. So please, if you get around to it. Now, something I want to talk about before I forget. This I thought was interesting and struck me as kind of funny. Usually in the morning when I get up, I look at a couple of things. I look at Facebook in the morning because that's where my sister-in-law puts pictures of my nephew. So that's cool. I like to do that. And then I check really quick my sub box on YouTube. Don't know why, because nothing ever fucking gets through anyway. But, I give it a shot. And I saw there was a commercial that they're for the new Nintendo 2DS XL. It was a commercial for they got a new game on there called Miitopia, Miitopia, Miitopia. And there's a segment, watch it. You can watch it right here on YouTube if you get a chance. And they actually use an older teenager calls a younger child a weeb. Now, I was under the impression that this was a pejorative term. I thought I was under the impression that this was a slur of some kind, and the kind of shit that you really shouldn't say out loud. It's usually a word used with a lot of vitriol, like faggot. Like just anger, all your pent up sexual frustration. You're projecting onto someone else and judging them for what it is that they enjoy doing with their lives, and saying it to a child. I thought that was interesting. Apparently, I'm just out of touch, I think, and Nintendo thinks it's no big deal, and good for them. The most important thing you can do is take away the power from words like that by getting them out in the open. I just thought it was interesting. So that's something to consider. If you got a free moment, go ahead and check out Nintendo's channel here on YouTube and see that commercial and see if I might be off base. I might be totally wrong in that, but that's just the way that I feel about it. So I just thought that was interesting. I'm getting some complaints over here. Before we jump to the next part of the program, somebody said, okay, I'm going to call him right now. Nick Canfield said that I never answered his advice email. Yes, I did. If you didn't get it, then send me another email and I'll try it again. Yes, I did. And I don't want to go into your business right here on this program. So, yeah, if you didn't receive it, I don't know what happened. I did send you something back. So shoot me something again. We'll try it again. I know it was a little while ago if we're talking about the same issue. So please do that when you get a chance. thechaosprogram@gmail.com. Drop me a line and we'll get it sorted out. Hopefully it's whatever it is. If it is what I think it is that you're talking about, hopefully it got sorted out by now. And if it didn't, again, try me again. We'll get it together. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. So that's what that is. I just thought that was interesting that right there in a commercial, But what else? I guess I should talk about E3. E3 was a fucking snooze. I was actually a little excited this year for the E3, a little, as I am every year. And then, I didn't know that they moved the schedule around. I think that's how out of phase that I am with everything. I didn't know that they moved the schedule around. Like it was on, I was talking to Mrs. Yokeas about, the E3 that's coming up. And she told me like E3's today. And I said, but this is Saturday. What are you talking about? And sure enough, Microsoft moved everything to Saturday. Everything got jumbled all around. And so I caught a little bit of what was going on with Microsoft, and I'm convinced that Microsoft is going the really expensive route in trying to phase themselves out of the console business and move everyone over to PC, which I think is a good move for them. But overall, I don't. I don't think they really understand their audience in that case. And they've created this niche, super console PC crossover group, people that want the power of PC and want all this stuff in the ease of a console, even though those are, juxtaposed ideas. They really want that. And you can't, put the horse back in the barn, once it's out. They are there. They want this. It's kind of like trying to satiate a bloodthirst. There's only one way to satiate a bloodthirst, and that's to have blood. You need this particular thing. And there's a small group of people who, I don't know if they need it, but they feel they need it. And Xbox and PS4 with their aggressive marketing has created that group. And now I don't think they know what to do. I really don't think they know what to do. So, but again, my feelings, I think Microsoft is trying to, kind of sashay their way out of the console business and get everyone to be playing games on Windows. Good move for them, at least in the short term. I don't know how that'll really work out over, a longer stretch of time, but we'll see. We'll see. Sony, I didn't hear a goddamn thing about what Sony talked about. I didn't hear a thing. So, or maybe I just don't remember. I just don't recall. Nintendo, I understand everyone set fireworks and threw babies in the air because Nintendo did nothing and still did better, I guess. I've never been of the belief that it's really like a competition. That's kind of silly because everyone roots for it like fucking sports teams. But when you root for a sports team, you're a fucking moron. That's some billionaire's pet project and you get to pay money to see it and pay money for the fucking jersey. So it's kind of the same thing. But Nintendo brought out a few things. We got a new Metroid coming, so that's kind of cool. But overall, I think if anything I learned from this E3 is that E3 has finally transitioned into what I don't know what it's always wanted to be, but its last dying gasp, its last chance is to exist as a fan fest. And that's what it is. It's a fan fest. It's this thing where video game enthusiasts, not real video game people, not real consumers, video game enthusiasts, okay? Not the actual market, the people who actually pay for this sort of thing, the people that buy millions of copies of things. These are the people that buy hundreds of copies of some game for the fucking Sega Genesis 25 years after the Sega Genesis came out, okay? They're now trying to hit up those people, the hardcore people. Anytime you see a business or, an industry, I hate to make it seem like this is a concerted effort, but all of these people seem to be now trying to go after the hardcore audience because they've alienated so much of the casual base. So much of the mainstream has been alienated by all of this that they now have to go directly after. And also, they've set themselves up. I've talked about this on this program a number of times and on the 8-Bit Podcast, is how we now have this 24-hour cycle of content, a beast that cannot be fed, that cannot be satiated. And so now that so many, and you just look at it, just look at the social media, look at your regular friends, the people that you deal with, not people from the internet, not like me and Alpha Omega Sin and, whoever it is that you interact with that from YouTube or whatever. I mean, like people that, your friends, the people you went to high school with or are going to high school with, if that's the case. Think about that, and that's what I'm talking about, is those kind of people, if people are asking for rants. What was I talking about? Oh, well, it's not important. The point is, so much of the, just casual money spenders, the people who spend fucking, $40 on Pokemon Go, the people who will pay $1,800 for a fucking bottle of wine in a club in, some hot city somewhere because they think it'll get them laid. Whereas if you want to get laid, it's a lot cheaper to get laid than buy an expensive wine. Just so you know, if that's all you're interested in, that comes a lot cheaper than a fucking $1,800 bottle of wine. But we'll talk about that some other time. The point is, so much has been done to alienate those customers that they've moved on to other things. And the primary target audience are people who are now in their late 30s and early 40s who have other things to worry about, like whether or not they can afford their mortgage or if they can afford to retire ever. Shit like that. So when you set yourself up as being just one more thing amongst the endless parade of useless shit that is every single day, you know, there's good stuff. Don't get me wrong, there's good stuff. But when you're part of that, and it's just part of the daily cycle of, oh, more of this shit, then you have to go after the enthusiasts, and then you're gonna wear them out, and they're gonna drop off. Why? They only have so much money. They only have so much time. And that's what it comes down to. There's only so much money and so much time. And the economy has only recovered so much to where people can spend so much money, and a small audience can use their expendable income to fill in, that gap. And so now E3 is something that caters to hardcore fans. A small group of people is going to have to make up for the spending habits of a large group of people. And that's interesting because, and maybe it's just me, but the video game conventions as we know them, when I say that, I mean, one I used to go to was the Classic Gaming Expo in Las Vegas. I have since stopped having that. MagFest is now expanding. The Penny Arcade Expo from Seattle, they've expanded. Gamester 81's Game On Expo east of here in Arizona. And then there's the Midwest Gaming Classic, and too many games. And anyway, the point is, all of these things were just now coming into their own. And now they're going to face competition, stiff competition, while they still have money from E3 and, and pretty soon, you watch, Indiecade and fucking the Game Developers Conference are going to turn into this same thing, because they got to draw money somewhere, and what are they going to, they're going to do the same thing Comic-Con did. They're going to wear out that fan base by counting on them to boost sales. Now, Comic-Con ticket sales are still hot there. I got no complaints about that. I can't say a bad word about that. Those people fucking own San Diego, and they're now expanding. They have WonderCon and Anaheim and all that stuff. So they're doing well. But the game conventions are just now coming into their own, in my opinion, becoming major events. They've made that step from something in a community center to, and a lot of that's illusion, because you'll notice a lot of these game conventions are getting serious consideration because they're drawing people to convention centers that largely sit empty most of the year. If you'll notice, we had an event here in Southern California called the SoCal Retro something or other, and they ran out of the they ran their show out of the Ontario Convention Center. The Ontario Convention Center is a big place, a really big place, because Ontario, if you don't know Ontario, California, it's a big dickhole in the middle of this basin where they built a fucking arena, and the only time that anybody's ever in that arena is when Metallica comes to town. But they have a convention center, and they ran this convention out of, half of a convention hall. And the only reason they were in a big convention is because that convention center sits empty most days of the year. So that's a lot of what that is. A lot of these game conventions are getting the special consideration, showing up these nice buildings, because these nice buildings were built expecting the economy in convention business to just explode in these minor markets. It didn't happen. It just plain didn't happen, because a lot of the businesses in America that they thought were going to take advantage of that has since been moved overseas. I'm not saying they won't catch up. They just haven't yet. So that's why those look bigger. But now those smaller places, and if they hold their audience, if they do what they do and they do it so well, it can be great. It really can. But now they're going to face increased competition from larger outlets like the ESRB and ESA that run E3, the Game Developers Conference, and a lot of those other industry things that have industry people working directly in it. Those resources and that kind of money. Because then it's going to come to a point where the video game industry is competing directly against the fans, because that's what the conventions are run by. They're run by fans. And soon there's going to be direct competition there, and that's going to be very interesting. I don't know if it's going to be good. It might be good for you and me, game fans, people of interest to see that sort of thing, but I don't know that it's going to be a good thing for either of those sides of the business because, especially when once sympathetic sides declare war, because that's what business is. Business is war. And when they start competing against each other, it could turn into a bloodbath and it could get real bad, and then that's when politics come out. And YouTube's enough of a bullshit work. You've got enough of these YouTubers on here lying to you about what really goes on with their relationships with distributors and developers and all that stuff. I'm not naming names, okay? And I don't even know all of that, so I don't want to speculate too much. But when that's the case, it's weird. It's weird, especially if, you're one of the people that follows this stuff every day. And there's a lot of you out there. I don't want to point fingers or anything, but you know what I mean. So that's what I feel about E3. E3 has become just one more thing. And that's tough. It's been a long time coming. They're not even shooting, they're not even paying for helicopter flybys anymore. You notice they're doing all their camera work. If you paid attention, they're doing with drones. They are doing everything they can to cut costs to make this seem like a bigger show than it really is. Because, you think about, I'm going to reference wrestling again. Even when wrestling drew horribly terrible numbers, usually the WWF was able to make WrestleMania look like a big deal one time a year. And they spent a lot of money that they probably didn't have to make that happen. And they got through a hard patch. Can the E3 get through a hard patch? We'll see. We will see. But usually when you have to start resorting to the hardcore fan base again and again and again, you've exhausted all other options. If people aren't gravitating to you, a once big business, and you have to go to somebody else. We've had a conversation on this program before about companies that used to sell buggy whips, and then they invented the automobile. And it doesn't matter how good you were, you could make the best goddamn buggy whip on planet Earth. It doesn't matter. So that's what we have to deal with. E3 was some game news. There was a couple of games coming out. Looks cool. I still do not own a Nintendo Switch. If you're curious, Alpha Omegason's been busting my chops about that too. When Cave Story came out on there, it's like, I hope you're enjoying that. I was like, well, I imagine I will as soon as I buy it, but I just haven't had time. I have been so busy, and if I've also been really still caught up. I'm one of the few people, I guess, that's still caught up with The Legend of Zelda: The Breath of the Wild. Adore that game. It's so good, so good, good stuff. Absolutely adore it. I know a lot of people went and just wore that game out in like a week or so, and fuck, I wish I had that kind of time. I really do. But that's what I'm doing, a lot of that, and so there's that. And yes, I am excited about the SNES Classic, if you're curious. Mrs. Yo Chaos is really adamant about getting one of those. So kind of a surprise too. I thought that was neat. Just kind of came out of nowhere. I think it's kind of it's an interesting gamble, because if they're going to bank on nostalgia, which seems a little bit of it, the problem with that is just to give you some figures, this Nintendo, the NES, the North American NES, or I think total NES sales, that includes PAL regions and so on, was like 67 million. I think the Super Nintendo was like 29 million. So you're dealing with less than half the people that could remember what it is. And I want to say more people than that bought the Betamax. So, and I could be totally wrong. I could be totally wrong in that. But, that's just not huge numbers. I'm glad they're doing it. I don't think that there's, again, the NES Classic thing, there was a huge amount of nostalgia, and a lot of people remember that. Half as many people remember the Super Nintendo. They might remember the commercials with Mario's face on Planet Earth. They might remember that stuff. But, if they're of a certain age, or, again, if you hang out in this hardcore video game scene, on social media and so forth, on the internet, then you'll know about it. But, if they're going to make it a limited edition thing, I'm sure they'll sell plenty. But I just thought it was an interesting choice. And they're including 2 controllers for a system that, and the games they're including, there's not a lot of 2-player games on it. So I thought that was interesting. But I am curious to see, if it feels just like a real Super Nintendo. Because the NES Classic is actually pretty cool. Let me see here. Nick Canfield asked, I'm gonna answer a question right now because he wrote me a book here. Nick Canfield says, when I get to the questions portion, sorry, I got something on my nose. I had something spicy for lunch. I had pad thai for lunch, so making me a little runny nose. I'm terribly sorry about that. Right here, live on the internet in front of everybody. With the coming up on 3-year Roman Reigns push in WWE, who, in your opinion, was the most undeserving of a push in pro wrestling history? Well, I don't know. I didn't see all the pushes. And you have to understand that pushes begin on the page, on a booker's page. I don't call them writers. If they're writers, that means they're writing comedy that no one's laughing at. And if you're writing comedy that no one's laughing at, then you're Dane Cook. I don't even know if that was relevant or not. Fuck that guy. But I didn't see all the pushes. And there's a lot of pushes that, you know, I mean, if you're old enough to remember, and you probably aren't, but there was a guy named Ludwig Borga. And there was a guy named Tatanka, Chris Chacon, the Tatanka, who comes back to Monday Night Raw every now and again, which I think is really cool. And considering he can still move pretty well for a guy his age. But Tatanka's push went on a big undefeated streak. That was his big push, big undefeated streak for like a couple of years. And then it wasn't working. No matter what they tried, he's just not getting over. So they ended his winning streak to create a push for Ludwig Borga. And then Ludwig Borga got terribly hurt halfway through that, and that just fucking died. Was he deserving? You know, deserving. What is deserving? It's always interesting that people want to ascribe these different ideas of what is deservedness. Similar to musicians and music. Like, these people don't deserve to be popular. What does deserve have to do with anything? The fact remains that if people listen to you, you struck a chord with the zeitgeist. You captured lightning in a bottle. Good for you. And anybody who says that that's undeserving or that's wrong, that's fucking jealousy. A lot of that you'll hear in the wrestling annals, because there's a lot of people who think that fucking wrestling is easy. There's a lot of people who think because those are two dudes cooperating with each other that it's fucking easy, it doesn't hurt, and those guys just, you know, they don't know, you know, how easy it is to do their job. Fuck you. You know, that's a very difficult job to do for not a lot of money overall. You know, the guys at WWF make a pretty decent amount of money, but the thousands of other wrestlers throughout, you know, planet Earth, the ones that work in Japan, because Japan is a shell of what it used to be, the ones that work in Mexico, the ones that work here in the States. That's hard work, and they put themselves through it. I'll talk about that another time. But what is who deserves what? No one deserves anything. You have no guarantees in life. You have no rights. You know. Now, I could talk about instances of people who really had something and were never given a chance. That you could talk about. Absolutely. Someone who has all the tools, everything to put it together, but was never given the chance. Because that's the other thing about, because wrestling, like, you know, I'm going to talk about it as entertainment. You can only go as far as they let you. When you're dealing with big time corporate entertainment, wrestling, Cirque du Soleil, the magic shows, it can only go as far as whoever, you know, whoever holds the purse strings, whoever allows the money to go in and out. You can only go as far as they let you, unless you break out on your own. And sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to go into business for yourself. You know, is it always the right thing to do for a wrestling company? Sometimes you have to know when. In an era of corporate wrestling, it's impossible. Because wrestling has to do too many things. It has to be a live event business. It has to be a television show. It has to be merchandise. It has to, and for WWF, it has to be movies and things like that. And there's only so much space on the marquee. So, but again, what is deserving? I don't know. I don't know. Do people deserve to die? Do people deserve to be beat up when they're running their mouths? You know, that's another thing. But we can talk about that some other time. You wanted to talk about wrestling. Roman Reigns, I understand he's a great talker when he's not on TV. I understand he's a pretty witty guy. People want to tell me what a great talent and athlete he is. I don't see any of that. But and mind you, he's being produced. They're telling him what to do because all he can do is run, spear, and pop off his ankles and punch. And it's a fake punch, and it's not a very good looking punch. So, there's that. But there's lots of people, I think, that got pushed down our throats for no good reason. Shawn Michaels, for example. And I know, I can just hear it. I can hear the boos. I can hear the jeers right now. And we're recording this, so I'm going to have to hear boos and jeers all week long, just so you know. But Shawn Michaels, fantastic talent. An amazing talent. Too damn good, as a matter of fact, because some of his shit just looks too good. To the point where there's no way this is a contest. And that's where wrestling, in my opinion, breaks. Where it's, if it doesn't look like a contest, then you're not really doing anything. You're having a fucking, a back flippy trapeze show. And who wants to see that? Probably some people, but, go to see the fucking circus. The circus is going out of business, right? Circuses are going out of business. Meanwhile, fucking pro wrestlers want to do shit that goes on at the circus. Didn't work out. Pretty soon they'll have fucking dirt bikes and elephants in pro wrestling. You watch. Dynamic Kirby says, what about the Atari box? I was thinking about this. And thank you, Dynamic Kirby, for bringing this up. I thought about this, and I've given this a lot of attention, specifically for the program tonight, because my good friend Ed T1138 dropped something on the social media, I think on the Facebook, about this. And I thought about this, and I gave it a good long discussion. I even read the article that he dropped and everything. And I gave this a lot of thought. And my question back to you is, what the fuck about it? Some company who bought the Atari name after some other company and some other company and some other company and some other company and some other company, and somewhere in there is the company that the Trammels bought. You have to understand, like, for a time, Infogrames was Atari Games, because the video game business, largely, like a lot of entertainment, is brand names. So some fucking company who bought some name is making some product that they claim is going to be compatible with games from 40 fucking years ago. Just take that into context for a second. So think about that. And so they're going to support machines or support software. Excuse me, I belched a little bit there. Oh, I did it again. Sorry. From 40 fucking years ago. And then it's going to do other stuff, but they're not really clear on what the other stuff is. So I think that's interesting. I'll keep an eye on it. And I don't think it'll be as bad as anything that came out of Mike Kennedy land. And by that, I mean the Coleco Chameleon or the Retro VGS. I don't think it'll be nearly as bad as that. Will it be a lot like an Ouya? Maybe not in concept, but maybe in execution. A capable piece of hardware that just really doesn't do a lot. Maybe we'll see. Only time will tell. Nick Canfield, asking the wrestling questions again, says, who, in my opinion, was the greatest wrestler? I don't know. I never saw all the wrestlers. But in bonus pick, my favorite wrestler. My favorite's always been Bret Hart. And when I say that, I really mean to tell you that my favorite is Owen Hart. But Bret Hart was a better marquee name, had more landmark matches. Owen was just a fucking energy bomb and could do almost anything. But I love Bret Hart. But great wrestlers? Gosh, I mean, real wrestlers that worked in the professional wrestling business? Probably say like Billy Robinson. Billy Robinson's a great example. Yeah, I'll go with that. Billy Robinson, who was a real wrestler, and yeah, I'll go with that. Billy Robinson. If you don't know Billy Robinson, look up some of the old stuff from the American Wrestling Association. Probably not in the 80s. I think Billy had retired by that time. But yeah, go look on YouTube. Find some old Billy Robinson, the AWA. You want to see some good form. And Billy Robinson was a shooter. Nobody did nothing that Billy Robinson didn't want to cooperate with, and had great form. So check out Billy Robinson if you're curious about that. Nick Campbell wants to know again, did I ever play Yoshi's Woolly World? Yes, I am right at the end of Yoshi's Woolly World, and I have not finished the game. Fantastic. Love it. You know, it's kind of hypnotic in a way. Anyway, Mega Gamer X1000 wants to know how I feel about a Toy Story world being announced for Kingdom Hearts 3. I don't care. I appreciate Kingdom Hearts, but I would rather watch someone else play Kingdom Hearts. So if you're going to play Kingdom Hearts and you're going to put it on Twitch or something like that, send me a message. I'll watch you play. I'll talk some shit, you know, but I don't care. I appreciate it. Just like there's some Toy Story stuff coming to Disneyland and Disney World in the next few years. So, you know, I appreciate it. I really do. Let me see here. And he asked me, how do I feel about the Kingdom Hearts series? I don't care. I mean, I like them. I like that use of those Disney characters. I think that's really neat. I remember when I saw that for the very first time, I thought it was kind of weird. And then I found out a lot of girls are into that. And interestingly enough, I'll tell you a secret. Girls who like Kingdom Hearts are secretly kind of slutty. Just so you know, if you meet a girl that likes Kingdom Hearts, a little slutty, just a little bit. So there's that. So that was my feeling. Something else I wanted to talk about. I probably missed a bunch of questions. So if I didn't answer your question, this thing moves really fast. So please drop it for me again. I know this doesn't do anything for the people that are watching this as a rerun. But, oh, here we go. Biffers Bargainal wants to know, have I ever played Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, or Pokemon card games? I'm trying to think. I've handled those cards, but I can't say I've ever been party to a game. And I've a few people that I know from work are a few years younger, and they're all about the Magic. Oh, you got to come over, Chaos. You got to come over and play the Magic. And the way they talk about it, they scare me. Oh, I remember I was doing like this, and I'll kick your ass. And it's like, whoa. Because I remember when I was a kid, and I had discovered Dungeons and Dragons, and my friends said, you got Dungeons and Dragons? I said, yeah, I got some old Dungeons and Dragons from my uncle. He says, we should fucking play that. So I went home and I studied and I learned how to play it and how to be a dungeon master. Blah, 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 blah. And this is before the internet where you could figure this stuff out easily. So I read all the books and learned everything and put together an adventure. And I come to school and we're going to play it. And these motherfuckers have found something called Magic the Gathering. And they don't want to do no more fucking Dungeons and Dragons. Like, you motherfuckers, I was up doing math all night long. And now you tell me you got cards? Fuck you. So that's really my opinion, Magic the Gathering. I'm so old-fashioned when it comes to card games in that you know, if I'm not playing cards if I'm not making money, I guess. That's my point of view. Similar to the way I feel about the lottery, you know. I prefer to lose my money, you know, with cards. So that's just how I feel. Let me see here. Next, talking about Jerry Lynn, Mr. JL. Jerry Lynn was a fine performer. I wouldn't call him a great worker. He's a guy that could do a lot of great moves and could really move well, but he did not, in my opinion. Now, I haven't seen all of his matches. I've seen a lot of them, though, and he is a guy that did not feel the audience. He just went out and performed a routine, which is what a lot of modern wrestlers do. Some of them get over that way. Some of them don't. I won't talk about them here because you wouldn't know who they are. You know, I don't get to catch a lot of big time wrestling. Big time when I mean, you know, the big three, which I guess is WWF, Global Force, which used to be TNA, which used to be, let's say, WCW for the sake of argument, because it's the same stupid redneck hillbilly shit, just with a smaller budget. And Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor is fucking number 3. Ring of Honor has surpassed fucking AAA and New Japan. And by very little. And that's just because they're owned by a television company. I'm sure there's other reasons. But I watch more of independent wrestling these days. There's a lot of independent wrestling here in California, so I go catch some of that. So if I start rattling about that, you'll have no idea who I'm talking about. Clayton Lancaster wants to know my favorite game series. Mr. Lancaster, I haven't the vaguest idea. I love all games, except for the ones that suck. Biogenesis wants to know, do I have the, he can see the GameCube right behind me. Do I have the component cables? I do not. I'm sure I know someone who could get them for me, but I don't even think this TV is component ready. I think this TV is all HDMI. So I don't think it would even matter. And I don't know if modern 4K displays, because we're looking at getting a 4K display, and I don't know if they have that. So I don't think it really matters. But no, I don't. I understand that colors are much richer. And in fact, I'm going to see a buddy of mine that has some of that stuff. I got to ask him about it. But to answer your question, no, I'm sure you're going to ask this question next. No, I don't have the disc for the Game Boy player. How lame, right? Pastel Shoal asks, how do I feel about the possible bubble burst? He puts the quotes on the end in the video game market. Do you mean what we're witnessing now, the slow deflation of the retro video game market, which is not a market at all? How do I feel about it? I feel that we reached a peak some years ago, and some people who just got into speculating on this are doing what they can to try and bolster sales. Also, it's interesting to me. I think I've talked about this on the program before, but I want to get this out of the way. I've talked about this before. I belong to a program. A program. Boy, that said something that I didn't mean for it to. I belong to a group, the Southern California Classic Collectors. It's a Facebook group that kind of turned into a group of friends. And we get together and meet up at different places. And in fact, unfortunately, one of the places that we go to in Anaheim, right next to Disneyland, right next to Mickey Mouse, had to close doors. Arcade 2084. I've talked about it on this program before, and I didn't really get to shoot any video of the place. A lot of other people have. There's a few people. I think... hate the name drop, but there's a guy that's in our group. Robert Santalon. I think he calls himself your geeky tipster. I think he did a video over there highlighting all the stuff in there. So go check that out if you want to get a good look at what Arcade 2084 used to look like. Kind of a bummer. But we had an epidemic and I'm not really part of the senior leadership of the group or anything like that, but we had a bit of a problem that this last meeting we were completely overrun. We were completely overrun with resellers, and it was kind of disturbing. I mean, now, because it's interesting to me, and I you guys get to hear this now, actually, because Mrs. Yelkea's got a fucking earful of this we were driving somewhere, and I thought to myself, because game stores are now showing up to these little meetups to sell stuff that I guess they're not selling in their stores. So if you think about that, they have a store somewhere that is now closed, and they're selling games in a fucking parking lot at some event where people are playing arcade games. And a lot of the dudes, there's a lot of, I shouldn't say smaller sellers, but people that I notice at when we have these events that come with like a Honda Civic full loaded. And I don't mean like full loaded, like when you go on vacation somewhere where you can drive, it's within driving distance, and you put like 3 duffel bags and an ice chest, and there's a lot of weight in your car. I mean like goddamn full. Front seat, back seat, in the trunk, underneath where the spare tire ought to be. And they put a fucking table in there. Fill this Honda Civic to where the fucking shocks are like bottoming out. Full. And they bring all this shit out, set it up on a table, sit somewhere, wheel and deal and do whatever it is that they do, sell nothing or maybe a handful of things, and then have to load this shit all the way back into their fucking car and drive home. And now you have game stores coming out and doing this same thing, but they're coming out with a fucking van, a full van, and they're bringing goddamn, I don't know, this, if you make it to these events, they're bringing like bookshelves and setting up stores. And here's something you ought to know, and here's something that people don't take. My nose is itching again. I'm so sorry. There's something that I figure out how to edit these things. I'm gonna take that out. God damn it. And what's what people don't recognize about game stores, because I know there's a lot of animosity towards resellers and game stores, and I don't think people who own the game stores even take this into account, because they're usually younger people. You won't see a lot of older business people. When I say older business, I mean people in their late 40s who've had a chance to learn throughout their life about what business risks are good and which ones are just plain risky for you and your family's future. The thing about having your own store is that the rent is due every month. You didn't make profit. You didn't make your money. Fuck you, pay me. That's what it boils down to. That rent is due every month. So these guys are bringing their wares out to sell it in a parking lot, or I've seen them at the swap meet, and they got t-shirts saying, oh, well, we have, you come to our game store. Like, I can't go to your fucking game store because you're here. You're not making money in the store. And a lot of times I find this interesting that these retro game stores set up in low traffic areas. Here in San Diego, we have a few of them. They're set up in cheap stores in very, low rent places. So no one's really coming in. I don't understand the point of opening a business in a place where nobody's going to come in. Because retro video games in the grand scheme of things are a sideline attraction anyway. People will not come from far away to come to your video game store because they can go and get it at Target or at Walmart or whatever. Best Buy sells used video games. You're not, and a lot of places want to carry really old stuff. I don't know how, what you think, but you're not going to sell a whole bunch of Sega SG-1000s. It's just plain not going to happen, So, but, something that was large, and it still is largely speculator driven, because now we have a lot of collectors that are looking to get out. They've had enough, and they want to be on their way. And I can't say that I blame them. I'm sure there are dudes. If you watch any of the programs here on YouTube, the easy ones, the ones that are, kind of high profile, like the Game Chasers and things like that, and they go to other collectors' houses, and these people's houses are chock full, like on the floor, on the sofa, on the kitchen table, in the cupboards where dishes ought to be, video games, and more video games. So, and at a certain point, I think you get tired of your house being cluttered up and full of stuff, and you try and get rid of it. And I think a lot of people are not getting back what they thought they were going to get back from it. And so if you're looking to get into retro video games, understand that, yes, prices are coming down because there's a lot more of this stuff than they thought there was. This stuff is not nearly as rare as they think it is. So keep that in mind. Let me see here. Nick Canfield wants to know if the carpet matches the drapes. We keep no carpet as hardwood floor. That's right. I said it. Anyway. I don't even know if anybody's going to catch on that, but whatever. What difference? It doesn't matter. Dynamic Kirby's wondering, do people who think that Crash Bandicoot is too hard just suck at the game? I never had problems with them back in the day. Well, people who think it's too hard, it just might not be their kind of game. If you're good at it, it might appeal to your dexterities. Everybody's built different. Even though at one level we're largely the same, we're all quite a bit different too. So, there's that. Let me see here. Boston Burf says he's had a few friends bow out of collecting. There's been a lot of people. I've talked to a few people that still hang out and still come play games, when we get together, but they don't collect. A good buddy of mine just got his Genesis and just, put a box full of Genesis games at $20. Get out of here. I said, well, I won't say who it was, but I said, what are you doing? And he says, I need room for my socks. Like it was that dire. There was so much stuff that he could either have a Genesis or he could have a drawer for socks. And as you get older, a drawer full of good socks is I know that sounds kind of old fogey-ish, but and you'll find out. Good, comfortable socks make all the difference. Mega Gamer X 1000 wants to know where I've been. I talked about this already. Where were you? You go back and you watch the beginning of the program. I've been working. I've been busy. I've been practicing guitar, and I've been actually in the studio a lot. I've been trying to produce some new music and stuff like that, which is not ready for release. I hope to have a new Dracone album out at some point. If for those of you who are curious about that, I did start working on a new Dracone album, and then we got a little derailed. Our drummer, Tim Hurst, if you guys are fans of Tim's, I hope you are. You can find his work here on YouTube. If you're a fan of Tim's work, Tim's landlord basically, called his lease. And I don't know what the story was on that, but suddenly, us and all our recording equipment and all that stuff was in Tim's garage and had to get the fuck out. So that stopped. So right now I'm recording and writing music by myself. That's what I'm doing. Plus the things I'm busy with my day job, because like a lot of YouTubers, in fact, not like a lot of YouTubers, I have a day job. There's a lot of your favorites that I understand. People are like quitting their jobs to do YouTube full time. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't do YouTube full time. And I know a lot of people bitch and complain that I only show up really live to do these podcast type things. And I'm going to try and do more. I have an idea of what I'm going to do next. And it's probably just going to devolve into sort of a vlog series, I'm sure. Because if you know anything about me, I do what I like to do. There's a lot of people on YouTube. There seems to be two distinct camps of the people that have high production value that want to bring you a television show. And they want to sell advertising over that. And then there's these groups, and I won't name names, but they want to make a commercial for you. They exist solely to, aid in advertising a product. And I'm not interested in that. I'm really not. So that's what that is. But I plan to do what I call the, if you're old enough to remember this, and you might not be, but that's all right. Way back when I was a little boy, in the late 1980s, there was a lot of the new something or other. There was the new Adam 12 and the new adventures of something and the new Leave It to Beaver. So in that spirit, I'm going to try and focus on something called The New Adventures of Yale Chaos, and it'll just be kind of man on the street thing. And if you don't like that, I'm so sorry. You could watch something else. But it's just, you need to do something else. There's so many fucking game reviewers. There's so many people talking about guitar pedals. It's just, and wrestling podcasts. Like, I just have to go out and do something else. So if you guys want to follow me, cool. I appreciate it. And if you don't, I'll see you some other time. But that's what's really going on. I wanted to make this channel a little more guitar centric, but I got to do that in my own way, I guess, because a lot of the guitar channels that are on YouTube are just fucking boring, just the way they talk about things. They make guitar seem boring. They make it seem so tactile and so clinical, and I'm not interested in that. And unfortunately, if you view content on this channel, you are kind of doomed to deal with what I find interesting. So I'm terribly sorry in advance. Nick Canfield wants to know, do you get pissed at the Wii U ports to Switch like me? I feel like the original system should be able to have their exclusives, and then Switch ports come out. I feel as if they have the inferior version. I have the inferior version. Well, that's just marketing. That's just bullshit. What difference does it make? You got to play the game for anybody else, so it has some new features that, look at it this way. They put out new cars every fucking year. Are the old cars, is the car from last year any better from the car from this year? It might have a new doodad. And what's a doodad? Some fucking thing that you're going to use a couple of times and, oh, that's neat. But the experience will be largely the same. Is it upsetting me that Wii U games are making it to the Switch? No, not really. No, I don't see it that way. I'm glad that stuff is coming to the Switch. They need to pad that out, and they've got a really hot tamale on their hands, and they need to strike while the iron's hot. Are all the Wii U games going to come to the Switch? No, Most certainly not. Game and Wario is not fucking coming to the Nintendo Switch. Period. That's just the way things are. Devil's Third is not coming to the Nintendo Switch. That's just plain not going to happen. Wii Fit U is not, it's just not there. It's not going to happen. Bayonetta 2 is probably not coming to the Nintendo Switch. But Mario Kart 8 and Super Smash Brothers 4 and there's a couple others. Games and Lego City Undercover, games that were fucking expensive that they've made hardly no money on because nobody bought a Wii U except for me and you and a handful of other people. They want to make their money back on that software, and I understand that. And if you don't like it, don't buy it. You already played it, and if you want that extra feature, that's just the way it's going to have to be. And it's. If the Street Fighter marks can buy fucking Street Fighter and then Street Fighter Alpha and Street Fighter Turbo and all that stuff, you can live with it too. And if you can't, then don't. It's that simple. There will be games on the Switch. I assure you. There were games on the fucking Wii U and no one bought the fucking Wii U. So, takes time and they want to make their money back on those projects. And I understand that. That's just the way business is. Downfall Network wants to know why Razorfist has never invited me or Alpha Omegason onto Metal Mythos. He has, actually. He's invited me to be on there, and I've never really wanted to interject. I like the way he does it all by himself. I don't think he needs me, and he asked me for a few ideas or, something I'd like to do for... Actually, I can't let it out of the bag. I think he implied that non-disclosure, so I can't tell you what he's working on. But he contacted me, or when we're doing the Hate Bit podcast, we talk all the time. When we're not doing the Hate Bit podcast, I don't hear from him for a while because he's a busy guy, much like me. So, but he did ask me about that. We had to talk about it, and I had to respectfully decline because I didn't want to interfere. I think the way he does it already is great, and I don't think I would really add anything. I think it would be Razorfist plus his buddy from the Hate Bit podcast. And that's not going to help you get better content. My face being on his stuff is not going to help you get better content. So I just felt that I couldn't add anything to it, and it's fine the way it was. So... But yes, he did contact me. As far as Alpha Omegason, I don't know. I can't. You have to ask Alpha Omegason. I can't speak for him, and I won't speak for him. I don't want to ascribe quotes to anybody. But no, he has asked me, and I respectfully declined because, again, I don't think that just my face and my having to say something about it would have helped. And there was a couple where he showed me a little bit of what he already had. It's like, well, you've covered all the bases. You don't fucking need me. I'm not a big, heavy metal historian or anything. I like what I like and I know what I know. But I just felt that what he's doing is going well, and I didn't want to interfere. I know I think I repeated myself like 3 or 4 times, but I just wanted to make that clear that he has, and I didn't want to wreck it. I didn't want to come and, be a pain in the ass and be just, a third wheel, a spare prick at the wedding. I didn't want to do that. So, Dynamic Curry wants to know my thoughts on the YouTube ad apocalypse. No, I haven't any thoughts because I don't draw any fucking money from this. I will have nothing to do with Google Wallet and payments and all of that. I'm not interested. I don't care. You folks are so nice, and you come to see me, and you say nice things. And I know some of you have offered to send me fan mail, and I really appreciate that. We got a really small mailbox that I can't fucking receive anything. It's just for letters. Our mailbox system, I guess they're trying to save money on that sort of thing. So our mailbox is tiny, so I can't receive any real mail or anything outside of magazines and stuff. So I got to get a post office box. I just haven't got around to it. And, then I'd have to find one that's, close enough for me to go visit every now and again. But I appreciate that. But that's enough for me, is that you guys, you come here and you visit and you say hello and you watch my content and all that. And I appreciate it. I really do. And somebody sent me an email the other day about why I don't post music on YouTube. I don't know. I really don't. I will at some point. Just there's certain stuff that I don't know. Maybe I'm too much of a perfectionist. I don't want to release a lot of that. And there's songs that I'm really when I start writing a song for a project, it's hard for me to make projects cross over. If I start writing a song for a particular group, I have the hard time using it somewhere else because I have material that's all Dracone stuff, and I don't want to record it and release it without those guys, because without those guys, the songs are just not that exciting. That's just my feeling, but that's what I feel. So, there you are. My thoughts on The Secret of Mana. I remember playing The Secret of Mana a while back, and it's the one that's all leafy. That's all I remember. Let me have a drink of water. Hold on. Bayonetta 2 and Wolfenstein 101 are supposed to come to Switch. I didn't hear about that. Good, because those games sold like piss on the Wii U. They sold like a garnished plate full of piss. They really did. And I like those games. You know, I didn't get I'm still waiting to get Bayonetta 2. I like the first Bayonetta on the Xbox, but I'm waiting to get Bayonetta 2 because I'm trying to find the copy that has Bayonetta 1 and 2. And apparently that was just one pressing, which pisses me off. But I got to find that. James Martinez wants to know, have I ever played Rocksmith? Yes. And I think that's a really bass-ackwards way. I'd love to say bass-ackwards. That's a really backwards way of learning to play guitar. I think it's kind of, you know, to me, it's kind of like people say that the best way to train a dog, to housebreak a dog, is to shove their nose in shit. And I disagree with that. I really do. I think that's brutalistic and totalitarian. And if you want to teach a dog how to hate you and how to bite you, then that's a good way to go about it. Rocksmith, I look at the same way. It's, you know, it essentially takes away satisfaction from you. It tortures you until you do it right. And that's no way to learn to do anything. If you're doing something just out of fear of reprisal, what kind of fun is that? And you cannot learn, and you know, and guitar is a different thing for different people. For a lot of people, it's recreation. For some people, it's art. Either way, you have to learn a certain technique for it to be satisfying. And no technique is really earned and learned under strenuous activity like that. Now, if you like that kind of gameplay, good for you. But if you're trying to learn to play the guitar that way, there are better ways. If it works for you, good. Because it didn't do a damn thing for me. Mind you, when I stumbled across it, I'd already been playing guitar for 20 years. So, you know, but then again, I can't, you know, badmouth it too much because, and people have asked me this, you've noticed my weight loss in the last few years. Where does that come from? And I think I've told you this before. I am an example of, and I think I've said this out loud before, I am an example of a Wii Fit success story. I lost, I think, like 107 pounds in the last few years using Wii Fit, if you hadn't noticed. But all that using Wii Fit. So I'm not saying video games can't teach you to do something and help you in life, but Rocksmith just, again, I think because I'm a self-taught player, I've never had a guitar instructor. I took a guitar course in high school for the first few weeks, the music teacher was trying to teach, but he wasn't a guitar player. He was a French horn player. And I took over, and in high school, I've already been playing guitar for like five or 6 years. And I took over the class after a couple of months. So didn't get any money for it either, which kind of pissed me off. Mega Gamer X asks, have I ever played Cave Story? I played a demo of Cave Story, and I don't remember liking it. So, let me see here. Steven Satanis wants to know, I'll answer his question, wants to know, when will the 8-Bit podcast return? When we get around to it. You know, we've learned over the last few years that we cannot work a schedule. We cannot be regular 9-to-5 guys and be here every week. Our lives are too busy and too hectic. And, you know, I hate to make it seem like, you know, we're Mr. Popularity, all three of us. But I know it's hard for me to pull it together on a regular basis and do that. It was hard for me to do this today. I had to clear a whole bunch of stuff just to, move stuff to tomorrow just so I could sit here and talk to you folks. But I knew I had to, but when we get around to it, I hope to do something live in front of the people at some point, but getting us all in the same place, because Razorfist and I live about 6 hours from each other, and even that's too much. Well, realistically, with no traffic, it's 6 hours. Now, since there's so many people for some reason going back and forth between California and Arizona on a regular basis for work, I understand, traffic is now getting pretty rough in both of our parts of town. So the 6 hour drive is now an 8 hour drive, and it's just, we can't even get together. So hopefully one day. CJ Blackthorn asked, referring to Rocksmith, is it the worst way? No. If you have no guitar experience whatsoever, again, that depends on what you want to do for playing guitar. If CJ, if you're really curious about this, please drop me a line either on Facebook, on Twitter, or the Yell Chaos Program at gmail.com. You know it, one word, the Yell Chaos Program at gmail.com. Hit me up there and we'll talk through it, and I'll see what I can help you with. It seems like you're struggling, I think. So let me know, and we'll see what we can do. Anthony Colazzo wants to know my thoughts on the Monster Hunter series. I think I've talked about this before, but I don't care about the Monster Hunter series. I'm glad that it's a really popular game and people like it, but I sat down to play it once on my friend Chad has a PlayStation 4, and I forget what, is it Monster Hunter Ultimate or whatever, and I played it. And similar to, it overwhelms me the same way like when I'm playing Xenoblade. There's just all this shit that's on the screen, all this information. I feel like I'm piloting a fucking jet, and it just I have to keep track of all of this, and I'm trying to fight this big fucking monster, and it's a bit much for me. So not my speed. It's something that I don't mind. Even I will say this: even watching someone else play it, I'm overwhelmed. It's ridiculous. But I'm glad that some people can just whip ass at that. And I'm very envious of those people, to be perfectly honest. But just not my speed. It really isn't. Dynamic Kirby says that he also lost weight using Wii Fit. Good for you. And that's what got him into yoga. Yoga for weight loss. Well, to each their own. That's up to you. That's up to you. But before I go, something I wanted to talk about, and then I'll let you guys go because you've had to sit here and listen to my bullshit for too long. So in closing, also don't forget to follow me on the social media if you're so inclined. Twitter, Facebook, the handle Yell Chaos, YELLKAOS, and that's where you can find me on the social media. I'm trying to do more, but and again. If I forget to tell you later on, don't forget to be on the lookout for the new adventures of Mr. and Mrs. Yell Chaos and all that. Because there's been some requests to see Mrs. Yell Chaos a little more often. So we're going to try and oblige. But something I want to talk about, and I'm going to sip of water real quick. So today, or over the weekend, we had Summer NAMM. And every time I talk about NAMM, everyone gets lost. What the fuck is NAMM? NAMM is the National Association of Music Merchants. They're based here in San Diego. And in fact, I got to do a video. They have the Museum of Making Music in Carlsbad. And I got to, I'm gonna try and get some video of that place because that place is really neat. And I got to show it off. I really do. It'll be poorly edited. So if you like shitty editing, it'll be the program just for you. And a big booming voice, just like this, to wreck it. So in any event, so there's that. And there was talk about, well, what I want to talk about is I am not a professional guitar player, but I have my opinions. And I can say what I want, talk about what I want right here on this here channel. So I plan to do that. I plan to talk a little more about gear. There was a discussion, and I don't even want to warrant a discussion. I don't really want to bring this out in the open, but there was apparently an article in the Washington Post, I think, that talked about the death of the electric guitar. Now, this guitar is not great, but it's not dead either. About guitar sales being down, and I got a little correspondence about that. What do I think about that? So I want to bring that out in the open, and I don't think this is really even worth a discussion. Something I've talked about on this program many times. Anybody who writes for a living is lying to you. They are interested in circulation. They are trying to sell you something. They are trying to they are stringing words together to get you to pay attention to them, because that's what they do for a living. They're not interested in you. They're not interested in telling you the truth. And they present you with things like statistics. And as we've talked about before, there are three kinds of dishonesty. There's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics. All right? Because statistics can tell you anything you want, and reading statistics will tell you anything you want to hear. And you can use those numbers to lie in all sorts of ways. But there was talk that because electric guitar sales are down, is the electric guitar dying? And I don't really understand that discussion, because, what is that? If you're just going to look at sales figures are down because sales figures were up far too much. This is similar to the discussion we had on the Hate Bit podcast a few years ago about the coming video game crash, which came and went, and everyone wanted to pretend that it wasn't happening, and we're still in the aftermath of that, no matter how you want to feel about it and how much you want to lie to yourself so you can sleep at night, if that's the case. But after the big, consumer boom of, say, 2005, 2006, 2007, leading into the massive Great Recession, which was actually a depression, of 2008, 9, 10, 11, which there are signs that the economy is turning a corner and coming out of it. I don't know how solid it is, but whatever. The fact remains, too many people bought guitars. And the other thing that's not being taken into account is that guitars last a long time. I don't have it here, but you've seen it on this program before. I have a 1993 BC Rich Blaster, a low and early Chinese made piece of shit Telecaster knockoff with humbuckers in it. And it is still in fine form. The frets are not so great. They could use some attention. It's not a very good sounding guitar, so I don't use it very much anymore, but I had it for, it's kind of kooky. But guitars last a long time. And something that's not being taken into account is that tens, if not hundreds of thousands of guitars are being produced every year. And guitar stores and guitar outlets are choked with used inventory to try and move the new inventory. And now they're choked in both directions. And so guitar sales are slowing because they don't tabulate used guitar sales. A lot of used guitar sales have moved to social media in the last 5 years. No one takes that into account. People sell their guitars on trade groups and sale groups on Facebook and on Craigslist. And that stuff is just plain not regulated. And I don't think it should be, and it's not reported. It really isn't. And there's always this idea that anytime something takes place, that there's somebody documenting it. There isn't. There's been all kinds of both positive and nefarious activity throughout the ages has gone undocumented, because history is written by the winners, the victors, and also people who are closest to people who own publishing outlets. Never forget that. You were always lied to by powerful people. Powerful people have the ability and the money to do that sort of thing. And those are the people that get to write history. All right? So when you look to your books for honesty, realize that all of that shit is at the mercy of whoever fucking made that book possible. All right? Not the writer, because there's always an editor and a publisher on top of that. Keep that in mind. But those sorts of things are not documented. So it looks like guitar sales are down, and guitar sales might be down because all the guitar players, you reach a point of saturation. And the only reason guitar numbers were up is because people own multiple guitars, and people only have so much room. Just like retro video game sales are slowing. People only have so much room. Now you can fit a lot more old video games in your house than you can electric guitars in your house. You know, that's just plain the fact of the matter. Depending on the size of your house, you know, here out west, bigger houses are a little more expensive. So I'm less likely to have a house just full of fucking guitars because I need, you know, like a bed and a place to put the food and, you know, for the animals, and you can't see them, but in this room, the snake is right off camera. We've got to have room for those sorts of things. So I thought that was an interesting discussion that they seem to base a lot of it off of sales. An art form is dying because people are not spending money where you think they ought to be. That's really interesting. That's like assuming that painting is dying because, you know, the sales of paint, when in fact paint lasts a long fucking time. You know, so these are the things that you have to take into account. I think this is also speaking of a larger discussion about resources and disposal of waste and things like that. You know, we're now inundated with cheap instruments, which this is a cheap instrument from Asia. There's millions of these things. And to where you're seeing cottage industries, you're seeing websites pop up selling shit that the Chinese couldn't sell. And there's just plain not enough money in making these things, so they have to make a whole bunch and sell them to smaller outlets. And now that the smaller outlets, and when I say smaller, is when you're selling them to kids who want to get into learning these things because they see, you know, all the fucking shredders on YouTube and stuff, and I don't know if they think there's money there, but they see that and they want to get in on that, and they can't afford to buy a $2,000 instrument. That's another thing, is there's far too many companies in this country, the United States, far too many people making custom guitars. There's not nearly enough guitar players to absorb all of these high-end custom-made machines. There just plain isn't. That's why Lamborghini, there's one Lamborghini, and they make their cars, they make like 12 a year. Because there's enough dudes to buy that. All right? But there is not enough, because guitars you can make a lot faster than a car. And the profit margins on a car are much higher than on a guitar because it's very competitive because there's so many people doing it because, you know, we may be at the end of, you know, the major popularity period, of certain popularity period of guitar. And that's when all the real experienced people are. They've had the chance, you know, and now they're not drawing money as guitar players. So they're drawing money in other aspects, and even that's starting to dry up because, you know, for any number of reasons. So anybody that tells you that there's one reason for why one segment of society is dying, and it has to do with sales, it's usually a lie. The economy is usually only indicative of the economy. It's not indicative of anything else. You'll see some great things came out of an era when, you know, sales of other things were at their lowest because, as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. So really, I think that all this stuff talk about guitar sales is really going to lead to hopefully innovation in guitars, because they talk about that dying. It's like, well, what's going to take up the mantle of the electric guitar? There's no other instrument waiting to take the place of the electric guitar. There really isn't. So there's no danger there. There's no threat there. So, but that's the way I feel about it. Anyway, I think I'm going to get out of your hair. So you guys have been great. I hope you have a great day, a great night, a great morning, whatever the case might be. And don't forget, check me out on the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. And drop me a line. Questions, comments, likes, dislikes, all that shit. The LKSprogram@gmail.com. Thank you very much. I think you guys are fantastic, and I think a bunch of you are a bunch of fuckers, but luckily I don't think those people were here. So thank you very much. Good night. Peace be with you, and we'll see you next time right here on the LKS program. Good night.